We walked down that road and really have completed that first stage, which is that profile makeover. And by all accounts, we've seen some really good levels of excitement and interest from our selling group that have really put their arms around this to say, yeah, this is something that can work. And frankly, they like the idea of looking the best they can.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 249 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Ingresso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guests today, yes, plural, on this episode are Dr. Wes Martz, VP of Marketing and Technology at Kadant Johnson, and Carl Howe, VP of Sales at Kadant Johnson. Wes and Carl, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Bernie. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining me. I haven't done this too often in the past where I've got two guests with me, but there's a reason for this, and that is that you both head up your executives at a manufacturing company, Kadant Johnson, and we're here to discuss the modern approach to marketing and sales alignment in manufacturing. As you know, as you've been experiencing, marketing and sales has really been undergoing this evolution, if you will, of digital transformation. And there's some things that no longer work in marketing and in sales. So I've invited you both here today, again, as the respective heads of sales and heads of marketing to discuss your very own digital sales transformation journey at Kadant Johnson. So Wes and Carl, why don't we begin with, for my listener, a brief introduction to your company, Kadant Johnson. What do you guys manufacture? And tell us a little bit about who you sell to.
Okay, sure. So Kadant Johnson is a subsidiary of Kadant, and we have about 2,800 employees worldwide. We're based in Three Rivers, Michigan, and what we make is what's referred to as a mechanical sealing device. And basically, it's a device that connects rotating things to fixed piping. And through that, we transfer different types of fluids like steam and water. The target audience that we are serving are industrial manufacturers, and they use our products to make other products such as fiber-based packaging like cereal boxes, recyclable coffee cups, tissue and paper towels, corrugated boxes, aluminum foil, tires, and many, many other products. Within these companies, then, our specific roles that we focus on include the engineering, maintenance, purchasing, and management functions. And this includes selling both MRO type items, which are maintenance, repair, and operations items, as well as large capital equipment and systems.
Okay. And the company's been around for quite a while. I don't know if you mentioned how long the company's been in business.
We were established actually in 1930. And we were the inventor of the rotary pressure joint. So with that, I guess I'll just comment, you can imagine that the company has a very rich history in engineering and technology and innovation. And we do have operations today around the globe with manufacturing in North America, Europe, Asia, and South America.
Okay, so global presence, terrific. All right, so let's get into some of the things that you've been experiencing. I don't think the two of you have been with the company since 1930, but nonetheless, you've been there for a while. And so you've seen things evolve. So why don't we talk about some of the traditional things that you all have been doing, first from a marketing standpoint, what I'll call tried and true marketing activities. You want to start there?
Sure. So as an engineering-based company, our marketing efforts, they really evolved out of the sales group. It was actually the sales people who started the marketing function, and that was back in the 1980s. And that was 50 years after the founding of the company. During that time, once we did have that group established, our traditional marketing efforts were primarily focused on print. print advertising, PR activities like feature articles in trade magazines, press releases, a lot of trade shows, a lot of exhibiting at those shows, and lots and lots and lots of sales collateral. In fact, we even had our own printing press on site. And like many other manufacturers at that time, we were heavy into print media.
Okay. And what are some of the aspects of marketing that maybe have been with you for some time that, still work, that you're still doing today with effectiveness?
One of the things that has been kind of the underlying fundamental is how we target and how we segment our groups. And then that falls in line with the positioning. And so for us, the way we communicate with our customers, whether it's through print or today it's more through digital, has really stayed consistent throughout the years. What has changed is more of how do we actually reach those contacts. In the old days, it was a print magazine. Today, it's through different channels. But that common element has been how do we communicate value? How do we communicate the benefits to our buyers? And that's really been the consistent theme over the decades.
So, Wes, what I hear you saying is that the focus on communicating your value has certainly stayed with you over the decades, but perhaps the methods, the channels, the way you reach the target customer, those things have evolved as digital has become more pervasive. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right. In fact, if you look at our marketing spend, you'll see that the clear majority of it today is really focused on digital marketing, and that includes a lot of different things. Back in the late 90s, that was basically our website. Today, the website is a small portion of what we do as far as our overall marketing spend and the time that's there. So that's exactly right. The digital component has really made a big impact on what we're doing and where we're spending our time and money.
Wes, can you also comment on some of the other aspects of your digital marketing? You said your website is a part of it, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Right. So when we look at digital marketing, of course, the website is kind of the hub, if you will. And all the other things that we bring into that are really driving people to that as a resource. So our digital marketing effort includes using different types of keywords, whether it's on search engines or on LinkedIn or other social platforms. It's also being present in all the major platforms. And it's kind of interesting when you think about years ago when companies were just starting to get on Facebook. I can recall talking to our CEO at that time saying, hey, we're pursuing this new Facebook page. It's going to be great. And of course, then it was Facebook, really? And now that's changed a lot. Of course, it was Facebook and then Twitter, and then it expanded. Google Plus kind of came and went. Regardless, it was an effort that really shifted our focus. Today, it's on really trying to reach contacts that we don't even know exist, that have an opportunity to use our products or services through these digital channels that our direct selling group may not yet be plugged into as far as having a face-to-face relationship.
Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, Carl, let's bring you in here. You've been kind of quiet in the background here. Why don't you kind of speak to what you've seen in the evolution of the sales strategy, sales process at Kadant Johnson historically and kind of where you are now?
Sure. So in our sales force, we really target selling our products, our services, and our process expertise on 2 or 3 key industries. We sell our products and several more than that, but our key offerings are really targeted at 2 or 3 of those industries. And in those industries, we sell primarily through long-established relationships. They played an important role, as Wes mentioned, going back to 1930 and beyond. Neither one of us were here in 1930, but close to it, I might add. We've had a lot of good relationships where our brand name recognition is very strong. Our participation in trade shows and professional organizations is well recognized and well respected throughout the industries. And as we leverage our relationship with one customer, that really lends well into going to another customer. But as we reach out of our core industries and get into some of our secondary markets, those relationships don't exist, and they're hard to build. They're hard to establish. Frankly, we don't know who to call on or where they're located necessarily. And that's what excites me about this whole digital marketing is being able to reach out, not just for us to be able to find our customers that we want to talk to, but also for our customers to be able to reach out to us because we have a product or a service or a technology that they're looking for to improve their processes.
So what I'm hearing you say, and this is really part and parcel to this whole conversation that we're having around marketing and sales alignment and how we're seeing that evolve within manufacturing, specifically in your case with Kadant Johnson, how marketing and sales have really aligned to, Wes, as you said, drive those digital marketing efforts to build more awareness and demand generation, reach people that you haven't necessarily reached, and then have them come into your funnel, if you will, and then potentially engage with them through a funnel activity and then ultimately into some sales conversations. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you guys say?
Absolutely. And I think as we've looked at it, one method over the other won't exist. So it's a combination, and it's not instead of direct sales or maintaining those relationships with our key customers, but it's really an addition to. And I think as we've worked through it and we've seen some failures and successes in the marketplace with our sales force, and frankly with the salespeople building up a frustration because they can't get to those customers that they want to, that they know could use our product or our services, it's really lent itself well, I'll say really aligned our sales force and marketing efforts very nicely. And frankly, we're still in the early stages of it, already seeing some wins out of it.
Okay, terrific. I think it's a great segue to where I wanted to go next in our conversation, Wes and Carl, and that is the evolution of your customer. Just like you guys haven't been there since 1930, I would imagine the same is true of the people that you're selling to. Perhaps some of them have been there for decades, and I would understand that. But nonetheless, I'm sure there's been sort of this evolution that you're experiencing, and I'd love for you guys to comment on how have you seen that customer evolving, their habits, their journey, demographics, all of the above?
That is something that we're still learning each and every day about how our customer base is changing. One thing that is for certain is that the customer today, and frankly, it's been evolving over the past, let's say, 5 to 10 years, they seem to be incredibly time crunched. Everyone seems to be doing 3 or 4 different jobs, where before it was 3 or 4 people, each one doing a job. And what that means is that they're much more short in their availability. They're much more expeditious as far as trying to find a solution as quickly as possible, doing their own evaluation before they might even engage with us. And so what that's meant to us is that we have a shorter window and even scarcer expertise within our customer base, which means we need to make sure that we're available so that when they are looking at alternatives or solutions to problems, that we're right there next to them in this process.
Okay, and Carl, can you comment on that from a sales perspective, given what Wes just said about that shorter attention span, the competition with the person's just availability? How does that impact how your sales team goes to market and calls on people and develops relationships to sell your Kadant Johnson solutions?
As I said earlier, we count heavily on long-term, long-established relationships. And as those relationships are retiring and no longer involved in the business or have moved on to different positions or roles, they're being replaced by obviously new, most time younger personnel. And I think everybody's more tuned into going online before they do anything, quite frankly. If they have a problem or they're looking for a solution to a specific problem they might be having, I think it's quite common for them to go to Google and try to search out a fix before they start just asking random salespeople to come in and start talking to them. So what I'm seeing, what our sales group is seeing are the modern buyers, if you will, are much more educated. They're well read, they're well versed in what's on the market, what's available, what new technologies there are. So when our salespeople interact with those people, we have to be ready to answer questions. We have to be able to respond accordingly, bring in additional resources that we need to whether it's to cover more higher levels of technology or to bring them to our R&D center here at the plant. So overall, I think we count less on relationships and more on getting our message out even before our salespeople show up. So I won't say it makes our job easier, but the customer many times has already seen us. They see what our products are. They've seen what we're able to do, and they're just much more informed as we go in the front door to start talking to them.
Yeah, you remind me of something that we have said many times, and actually I'll give credit to the first time that I heard it from Byron Matthews, who's the CEO of Miller Hyman Group, perhaps the largest sales training company in the world. And he says that the modern buyer has become better at buying faster than sellers have become at selling. And I kind of hear you saying that, perhaps not in those exact words, maybe not meaning exactly the same thing, but what I've heard you just describe, Carl, is that evolution of the buyer, especially as some of the buyers that have been at companies for a long time and retired, and new ones come in and they're doing it their way, they're going online. We'll be back in a moment with my conversation with Wes Martz and Carl Howe. Conversica is the leader in conversational artificial intelligence assistance for business. By automating routine business conversations and personalizing interactions at scale, Conversica augments your workforce, allowing humans and AI assistants to work together harmoniously. With a large library of purpose-built and ready-to-use conversational skills, Conversica's AI assistants can be deployed quickly, are human-like and personal, and provide superior conversational accuracy and autonomy. Learn more at conversica.com. So I think where I'd like to go next in the conversation is, I think there's a natural flow to something you said, Carl, I want to come back to. And you said, when your salespeople get in front of these people, these buyers, they need to be very well informed and they need to be resourceful. But what about getting in front of them? How is that in the modern sales approach? And how is your journey on digital sales transformation equipping you to actually get in front of the people you need to get in front of?
One of the traditional ways we've gotten in front of customers is driving down the road and quite frankly, seeing a smokestack and pull it into the parking lot and going in the front door and talking to a receptionist. They ask if we could see this person or that person. And I would say back when I got into sales, that was probably somewhat effective, and it was more people to people, and that worked pretty well. And as time's gone by, to even find a receptionist in a room anymore is rare. Usually there's a phone on the wall and a list of people. And if you don't know who to call, you're just out of luck, and you might leave some literature and hope somebody picks it up and finds you. So what we're looking for today and what we're experiencing more is to work smarter, not harder. And that's to do more homework up front using a search engine, for example, within LinkedIn, to find out companies or industries or titles that we want to research. And once we find those titles or people or companies that we want to reach out to, it's a much cleaner process and to be able to get in front of them. And then vice versa, we're finding that a lot of companies are doing their homework on us, or they're typing in keywords of one of our product lines, and we're getting leads, very strong leads from companies that we've never done business with before, not by us finding them, but frankly by them finding us. Obviously, for any salesperson, that's an exciting thing to have happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carl, you remind me of another data point, if you will, that actually comes from LinkedIn in their third annual State of Sales report published in October 2018. One of the data points is that 62% of decision makers read a salesperson's LinkedIn profile before determining if they'll talk to them. And specifically, they're looking for a quote unquote informative LinkedIn profile. And I know that we recently worked with you and your sales team to go through a sort of a transformation, if you will, on your sales team's LinkedIn profile. So if you can kind of remark on that process for you in terms of how you're using LinkedIn a little bit more in terms of the prospecting and the tool, the opportunity that it really presents to you, especially given the fact that you can't, really drive down the street and call them a smokestack these days. Really, LinkedIn is kind of that freeway, if you will, that you can drive down to find the people that you need to find. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, let me start out by elaborating by saying I've been in the business for almost 40 years, and I thought I knew just about everything there was about sales and reaching out to people and getting to be known, and only be proven wrong as we worked over my LinkedIn profile. I've really noticed that a lot more people are reaching out to me to be connected to me, to ask questions, not just salespeople, but customers, quite frankly. And I've been very surprised. I've been, extremely surprised at how strong that has been and how popular it is. Again, it's not necessarily me or my salespeople finding people. It's our customers and other people, once again, reaching out and finding us, which is extraordinary.
I would agree. And Wes, I know that you've been involved in this process. So where I'd like to go next is perhaps our last question before I get to the wrap up here is, where do you see yourselves on this digital sales transformation journey? And I want to emphasize not only to the both of you, but to my listener that it is in fact a journey, right? I don't think that you guys have been at this for years. You haven't figured it all out yet. And I don't think that offends you, right? I mean, this is a journey. So where are you on the journey, and kind of, what do you see evolving over the next year or two?
Like you said, Bernie, we do view this as a journey. It's something that we didn't rush into for sure, but we didn't crawl into either. Linking up with Vengresso was a big boost for us as far as getting us level set to move the group forward. And, on the journey, our first goal was to make sure that the LinkedIn profiles of our customer-facing people looked the best they could look. And frankly, some were quite good even before we started down the road, but most had a lot of opportunities for improvement. We walked down that road and really have completed that first stage, which is that profile makeover. And by all accounts, we've seen some really good levels of excitement and interest from our selling group that have really put their arms around this to say, yeah, this is something that can work. And frankly, they like the idea of looking the best they can online. The second part, as we're kind of moving along past the profile and making sure that's the best it can be, is to say, how do we engage more on LinkedIn? And that's where we're looking to say what's next in this evolution, in this journey, is seeking and finding training on how to engage and prospect those prospects that really are within our target group and can help us do more and do it more efficiently. And that's really our next step, particularly as we walk down the road. Again, utilizing the skills and knowledge that Vengresso has is actually kind of a comfort to us. And I'm not trying to make a sales pitch here, by the way. I'm just stating what we did and how we view the organization and how it benefits us. So I would expect, as we continue down this road, the direct selling group, as they see and get some wins, they're going to be even more excited to do even more on LinkedIn. And that's really the hope, is that it's kind of like a snowball going down the hill. Momentum builds upon momentum. And eventually they say, wow, this tool really can help me make an impact.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Wes. It really comes down to behavior change. As humans, we don't experience behavior change by doing small things. We have to do things with consistency and over time experience change that we need to do. I often use the analogy of an athlete. An athlete, when they're practicing repetitively, not just a little bit, but a lot, right? And not just one day a week, but 4, 5, 6 days a week, and not just 3 weeks out of the year, but 50 weeks out of the year, depending on the athlete and whether they're professional or not. You get the idea. It's just, that's the way we humans are wired. We have to go through sort of a training process that is really geared toward behavior change. So I agree with everything you just said. Last question before I do segue to my summary here. Is there anything that you're hearing from the C-suite that you think is worth remarking on? And in particular, the reason I ask this is because, I'm going to stereotype a little bit, gentlemen, here. Manufacturing, does sort of have this reputation of being perhaps a little laggard compared to perhaps other industries. So I'm just wondering if you're hearing anything from the C-suite at Kadant Johnson as it relates to your digital sales transformation journey.
I think you're right on, by the way. The stereotype seems to fit, at least in our experience, as we deal with manufacturers day in and day out. It totally fits your description with what we see. So within Kadant, I should note, Kadant is a very decentralized organization. We have a fairly small corporate group, and the day-to-day decisions are really made at the divisional level with oversight from the corporate leadership. And because of this, we really have a lot of latitude to experiment and to do what makes the most sense. Recently, in fact, it was just a week and a half ago, we had our president and CEO visiting our division, and we had a discussion about digital selling and what we were doing on this transformation, particularly with LinkedIn and with our LinkedIn profile makeovers and kind of the next steps. And I have to say, the engagement and interest that we got in this program was overwhelmingly positive. In fact, just to kind of emphasize that point, many of them are already asking what can they do to improve their own digital presence. They saw the value in enhancing their own digital persona. And it didn't take hours and hours of convincing and really trying to put a hard sell on it. Instead, it was a matter of showing how buyers are changing their behaviors and how it makes sense for us to change our behaviors. And, with that, I was really excited and looking forward to saying how they're going to really embrace this going forward. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised and really encouraged by their response.
That's terrific. And what you said, Wes, the bottom line in what you said is the buyer's changed, right? So how can we ignore that? We can't ignore that. Right. So it's all about how do we meet the buyer the way the buyer wants to be engaged. And so I think, this conversation has been all about, your digital sales transformation journey and meeting the needs of that buyer. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to transition to my summary. I'll try to keep it brief and then just give you sort of a last word on anything you might want to add. And we began our conversation with a brief introduction to your company, Kadant Johnson, established way back in 1930. You manufacture mechanical sealing devices, and you connect rotating things to fixed piping. I think that's about as technical as I can get. You sell it to industrial manufacturers who take your product and put it into their product. And of course, we started a conversation with a discussion around the things that you've been doing in marketing that have been effective. And you said a lot of it used to be focused on print advertising, a lot of PR, a lot of trade shows, lots and lots of sales collateral. And then today, while the messaging is still very, very important, the delivery of that message, the methods of the delivery of that message have changed quite a bit. You mentioned, Wes, that a lot of what you're doing is digital marketing and the website is your hub, but you're also doing a lot of content and inbound activities, as well as engaging on LinkedIn and even other social media channels, including Facebook and perhaps Twitter, to potentially reach and engage people that you're not reaching through traditional means. And then from a sales standpoint, Carl, you mentioned that you really focused on 2 or 3 very target industries with very, very long established relationships within those accounts where the brand, the Kadant Johnson brand, is very well known. But in secondary markets, it's very hard to reach people. You don't necessarily know who to call on. And the old days of driving by a smokestack and literally calling on them are kind of gone by the wayside. Just can't really do that. So these days, a lot of it is around, the inbound activity. And really recognizing that the Kadant Johnson customer, as well as prospective customer, they've changed. Their buying journey has changed. And many of them have retired over the years. So you've got sort of new people who are involved. And one of the things that you guys mentioned that I find very interesting, and I see that myself, is that people are doing more than one job. So they're very busy. You made the comment, Wes, that sometimes it's like they're doing 3 jobs versus, they used to do just 1 job. So consequently, they do their own evaluation. A lot of it is done in a shorter collapsed period of time and also done online. So a lot of those people are younger than what you've seen in years past. And again, they're using digital channels to find information on the kind of products that you all bring to the marketplace. So you have to count less on relationships and more on getting the brand in front of them and then finding ways to engage with them. That kind of leads us to really the crux of your own digital sales transformation journey. You started with the LinkedIn Profile Makeover program to really upgrade the presence of your sales team's LinkedIn profiles, and it really has given the team a lot of confidence, you say, and feeling good about how their profile enables them to really engage with people with more confidence. And so now you're looking at sort of the next phase, and that's how do you actually do more prospecting and engaging on LinkedIn to really find more people within your target audience, so you can get more penetration into those secondary markets that you want to get into. And then you mentioned that your executive team is a very decentralized team. Decisions are made at the decision level. And then you told the example of recently being visited by the president and CEO, and where your discussion around digital selling was very, very enthusiastically received. And even the question was asked, like, how can we get involved in our own digital sales transformation journey, and how the digital selling behavior really is just about meeting the modern buyer the way the modern buyer wants to be engaged. So, Wes, Carl, that's my summary. I'll leave it there. Is there anything that either or both of you would like to add?
I think you had a great summary, Bernie. I guess one thing I'd like to just reinforce is the fact that more than 60% of decision makers are looking for that informed online profile. It really says if you're not looking the best you can online, you're going to lose out to those who do make the effort. And that's really part of our journey, is looking the best we can to meet the modern buyer where they are.
Yeah, and what I'll add to that, Wes, is I'm using air quotes, and I know you can't see it because this is an audio podcast, but looking your best is all about having a LinkedIn profile that's written through the eyes of your buyer, right? Speaking the buyer's language, communicating to your buyer how you help them. So I think that's what we're saying here, right? That looking your best is communicating that you understand what your buyers need, and you have the ability through your company, Kadant Johnson, to meet those needs.
That's exactly right. In fact, I want to attribute this to perhaps something I've read or seen, and certainly your organization's tuned into it. It transforms that profile from a resume to a resource. Exactly how you said it. What is the benefit to the customer?
Yep. Well, I'll take credit for that. Not me individually, but Vengresso. I think we've been saying that. We've been waving that flag for quite a while. Transform your LinkedIn profile from a resume to a resource. Wes, Carl, thank you so much for joining me here today. What I want to do is ask you both to just name your LinkedIn profile handle so we can leave that with my listener. And of course, we'll link that up in our show notes.
Sure. You can find me at Wes Martz on LinkedIn.
And you can find me at Carl, Carl Howe, Howe.
Okay. And Wes Martz is, you spell your last name with a Z, right? Martz.
That's correct.
All right. Terrific. Well, Wes, Carl, again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thank you, Bernie.
This episode is sponsored by Conversica, the leader in conversational artificial intelligence assistance for business. Learn more at conversica.com.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at vengresso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengresso CEO, Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at vengresso.com. And that's one S in Vengresso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.